Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. We are here kicking off a long weekend of reviewing tires. I've got 25 sets of tires with me, and I've got 3 days to try to review them all, and I might be fighting around some rain, so we're going to see how much I can get through. But up first, possibly not the first video to be released, but the first tire of my weekend is the Reefs Crux and Gray Compound. The Gray Compound, I believe, is the more G8 type compound of the two. I think since this one was released, they've released a pink compound that's actually stickier, but when I bought these, gray was the only one available. Reefs Crux run about $60 for a set, and today inside of these we are running Crawler Innovations Little Novas dual stage foams, but unfortunately they are not the foams that I would really prefer to run. These have the 4.5, these are the 4.5 inch size, so I'm running the outer tuning ring on them. But that inner closed cell foam is not quite as large as I would like it to be for a tire of this size. But with as many tires as I have out here, this is the last set I had available to put in here. So we're going to see how they do. On the side hill, a little more collapse on that front driver tire than I would like to see. Again, that's attributed to that foam, but not too bad. This line here that is right underneath the driver front tire, this guy here, we want to try to either stay above or below that line when we side hill, and same goes for this one here. If you get your tire caught inside that, typically that's a really good cause for a rollout, which for you, this is the video that you're seeing. For me, I had about 6 minutes of a video recorded with this tire. I had been rolling out several times and I broke a rod end on a rear link, so I went up and fixed that. And I honestly think those rollouts were attributed to some changes that I had made to the truck. I had put shock bands back on the front, but I don't think the shock bands were doing me any favors in the side hill. I think they were actually hurting me. I've already made it further than I did, so I have taken the shock bands back off, but I have fallen into that crevice there because the Crux is kind of sliding sideways on this side hill, which is not desirable, and that tends to happen a lot on this side hill because the surface is very pocketed. The surface is very uneven. Not only do you have those cracks and kind of ravines to deal with, but there's just very, very uneven pocketing on this rock. And that makes side hilling a challenge. So that's why this obstacle is such a good side hill test, is because we're not only testing, just the angle of the side hill, which is about a 40. There's a rollout about a 40-degree average here, but we're testing very uneven surfaces. As far as the Crux go on their side hill performance, between what I'm doing right now and what I did in the video that I ended up deleting, I'm not overly impressed. I don't think that I have a perfect match with the insert on this tire. I think I could benefit from a different dual stage foam in here, but I don't think insert is my only problem. There's a lot of not a lot, but there's about knocked the camera over on that one. There's a lot of sideways slide on this, and honestly it just tends to let go. I am not thinking that the Crux is a very good side hilling tire. We're going to do a little less extreme side hill now, and we're going to go kind of more up at a 45-degree angle and see if we can get a better result. But so far, I'm going to say, I definitely think I might retest at least this obstacle with a different insert at some point, because I don't think that I've got a good match. There is that front driver tire has a lot of sidewall collapse on it. I don't know if we're really going to be able to show that on camera with the lighting that I'm dealing with right now. Drop that down a little bit. There's a lot of collapse on that sidewall, which is not typically what we want to see. Now I've messed up. And that is typically why I run a dual stage insert. And quite honestly, with the size of these tires, these are a 475, like a full 475 tire. They're also a pretty thin carcass. I think this insert might be too small, and that's definitely going to attribute to some issues. But the Crux also seems to just kind of let go pretty easily. So let's turn this into testing a little more forward drive up the side hill. Getting some wrinkle on that rear passenger tire now. Again, partially due to the insert, largely due to the thin carcass. Sun coming up directly behind me. It is not overly hot outside, but that sun sure is warm. But that should put some temperature on these rocks, kind of help out a little bit with performance. So again, coming down at about a 45-degree angle. Honestly, I'm a little weary to go at more of a steep angle than this with the Crux. Overall, I'm just going to say it's not a good side hill performer, but I'm going to put a pin in that. And what I'm going to do is, once I get through testing a set of tires that has a different insert in it that I think might help this tire do better, I will pull those out of that tire and I'll put them in the Crux, and I'll come and run this obstacle again. And if it does better, I will video it and add it to the end of this video. But even that rollout coming off the obstacle, I mean, since we rebuilt the exit on this obstacle, I haven't had really issues with that. And again, I don't think that that's all insert. And now we deal with an issue that hasn't happened to me before when I've actually been trying to run an actual course. Our obstacle is gone. It's completely gone, completely underwater. It is somewhere down there, because over here is where we would normally come up. So I guess obstacle 2 is not going to be something we're going to be able to do today. We have got some rain out here. The lake is obviously up a few feet, which that's good for the lake. Not so great for consistency. So we'll drive around down here for a second, and I'll try to find another obstacle. Kind of the purpose of this, last time I was out here was perfect because it allowed me, we're getting down in the water. It allowed me to test the wet tire performance without actually having the truck go underwater like it's going right now. So, yeah, now I'm definitely going to have to pull those foams out. Okay, so not a good way to get... Let's see. If we can... If we come around here... Crux not doing a great job in loose rock and kind of muddy surface. Just kind of spins, doesn't really dig in very well. But if we can come here, we can drive on a rock that's under the water right here and get our tires wet. And then I need to get all the way over there. But I think that's going to submarine the thing. Yep. And as I've said, I actually don't like driving in water at all. I don't really even like doing the wet tire test like this. Because now I've got to dry out all these foams. It's just kind of a pain in my ass. I have to do more bearing maintenance. But I think it's fair to see how a tire performs. But we are a much different setting this go around. Sorry, I'm trying to drive and walk and film the rig and figure out what I'm doing here. So normally when we come up on here, we've driven on dry, flat ground for quite a while. I mean, our obstacle is right down there. And I mean, it is, if you go back and watch one of the previous videos, you can see it's a good 1.5 foot long, pretty steep rock. So it's far underwater. But right now what we're seeing with the Crux is we don't have good directionality. We're trying to pull up on this rock. There we go. And it's just pushing forward. Okay, well, this is going to take some rethinking. I might, after this video, I might come down here and try to build an obstacle out of this. At least something to where I can drive and... Okay. Sorry, guys. I just fell. Where I can drive and get the tires wet. And, you know, they'll at least be wet enough for the next few obstacles to kind of test wet tire performance. But then I got to find a different place to walk, apparently. This video has kind of turned out to be a disaster. Not a fun start to the weekend for me. Picking a kind of a shitty tire so far, if I'm being honest. And then having the issues with the water level and everything. Let's see if we can get back on track here. So technically, this would normally be our third obstacle. And the goal here is for the tire to be able to, the front will drive right up, and we want the rear optimally to hook the edge of this and pull it over without having to shuttle too much or without having to take it at an angle. Because there's an angle that you can take this at that makes it really easy to get up. But we want to avoid that. So we got to get the front tires up first. And again, the tires being wet is a good test. I have liked that that's what we've been doing. But I'm just going to have to rethink that other part right now. There's nothing I can do about the fact that it's all underwater. Other changes made to the truck. I mentioned that I had put the shock bands on and then took them back off. Normally we have run a Hobbywing Fusion SE 1200 kV motor, and now we're running a Fusion Pro 2300. I think that we're going to take some wheel speed to get on here, so we're going to try bumping. And we roll back. I put the Fusion Pro in here because I wanted a little more wheel speed. And honestly, a Fusion 1800 would be probably perfect, but I had a Fusion Pro and I don't have an 1800 on hand that isn't in a rig. And so we put the Fusion Pro in here. I might need to put a little bit smaller pinion. Right now I'm running an 18-tooth pinion, which on the Stealth XF transmission, that's about what you can get away with. So I don't actually know that I can do a smaller pinion. Man, you can tell it's springtime. The bugs are starting to come out, starting to get bit. Oh, thought we were going to be able to slowly go up there, but now we're just sliding off the side. So you can see where the difficulties on this obstacle are. And the Crux is really struggling. So let's come up at the angle. It's usually pretty easy. But the Crux not even having enough grip to push it up there right now. There we go. No. Wow, that's bad. So obviously the tire is very wet. But this is not typically something that tires struggle with this much. There we go. And now we go to a side hill. A little side hill, but side hilling is something that the Crux has proven issues with today. So we'll see. Already starting to slide sideways a little bit. No way. No way am I going to get a rollout. This would be the first rollout that I've ever had off this obstacle, including like cheap Amazon tires. But if I move forward, we just start sliding sideways. If I gone, okay. I'm going to be able to save it because this rock is there. But that's not good. Yeah, didn't end up saving it. All right, we're not even going to mess with that again. We're going to come up through maybe a different way. So that definitely is not insert. That is just overall poor performance. Now again, yes, the Crux, the tire is wet. The foam isn't. that well balanced to the tire, but it should be doing better than this, especially for, remember guys, these are $60 for a set. And of course, with any crawler tire, they all come, well, not all of them, but 99% of them come with crappy foams anyway, so you're gonna have to replace that if you really want optimal performance. And of course, like I've said, the foams that I've chosen for these aren't the foams that I would recommend, but they are going to be still better than the factory foam. But these are really struggling. Now here we have a transition, and then we kind of got to exit on a little bit of a side hill. And this is, I think, pretty much the last dealing with side hill we'll have for the most part. And this one's not extreme. Yeah, Crux not really having any issues there. Yeah, it did that fine. That was good. So, are we... Gotta watch where I'm walking. The ground is soft out here because we've had the rain and just about lost my footing again. So I don't know yet if we're dealing with a compound issue or a lug design issue. I don't know where the Crux is falling short. It seems to me that this compound is not great. And again, this is the gray compound. And I believe I need to go back and look. And I don't have internet out here, so I have to wait. But I'm pretty sure they've released, since these came out and since I bought these, they've released a new compound called Pink. And that the Pink is more of your, you know, softer, stickier compound. We are missing part of this obstacle, I'm noticing. And I think I'm going to have to reset it because I don't think this tire has a chance without it. Alright. Crux have not been treating tire rack well. On that first obstacle, especially in the video that I ended up deleting, we had a lot of rollouts. Like I said, we broke that rod end. Body took some damage. That's not bad until we get here. Come on, show me something. Show me something there. Nope. Again, we're relying on that rear tire now to push up, catch the edge of that, the lip of that rock, and push up. And it just isn't able to do it. I really think that this is compound. I think this lug has a decent, I don't think it's the best design necessarily, but I think the lug design is decent. I think the lug is fine. But I definitely think that we're dealing with not a great compound, which is weird because it feels pretty good. It's pretty thin. You know, it's not an overly thick carcass. Come on, can we get the one tire? Nope. It feels like the tire should be doing better than it is, like if you just feel these tires. And no, they don't give you the J Concept stick where you can just bundle it into a ball and it stays like that. They're not super sticky, but they don't feel like they should be this bad. Okay, little bump. Little bump got us on. So, you know, again, that's not necessarily saying that the tire is awful. Some tires, as I say, have to be driven differently. Some tires can do that without bumping. Some have to bump. But usually the ones that have to bump are not your better tires. And I can say that has been my impression of the Crux so far, is that it is not one of the better tires out there. And if you haven't noticed before, I don't spend a whole lot of time talking about price. I don't harp on price because my goal is not really to answer the question, what's the best tire and which one should you buy? My goal is to answer the question, you're looking at the Reefs Crux. How do they perform? You want to see how they perform before you buy them because you like them, because you like the way they look. You like Reefs as a company, or, you know, you're just curious for whatever reason. So I don't necessarily spend a whole lot of time comparing tires with one another. The point of my reviews is more about just how does this tire stand on its own merit. I'm not trying to compare it against a Tusk, because honestly, if I did that, most of the time I would be saying, just buy a Tusk. But when we look at tires like this, it is getting difficult for me to... So that is not really an indication of anything. That's pretty normal for this obstacle. Most of the time I'm able to save it, but it's all on driver, not tire. As I was saying, though, it's hard with tires like this not to consider the price and not to say, look, these are $60 for the Crux. That was tire. Let's see if we can... But for the cost of these tires, I definitely think that they are not holding up against the competition. I mean, $60 a set, you're getting into, there's not that many tires out there that are more expensive than that. By, you know, I mean, $3 or $4, sure. But that's on the upper echelon of price. When you got a set of tires that's $29.99 a pair, I expect better than this out of them. All right, now the difficulty with this obstacle is it's pretty steep, it's fairly slippery, it's very pocketed, and what we need to do, this is more of a test of forward drive and side lug. So what we want to do is shuttle over and use the side lug to try to walk up the right side of this rock here. But that's easier said than done. This is actually very difficult. So tires that can do this, generally it's at least a good indicator of forward drive. Now the Crux is actually, you know, the way it's getting up on here is pretty good, but then when we get up, we're kind of losing it. Okay, I think what I'm going to be able to do, and see, I can cheat it and just go like this and try to pull up that way. That doesn't always work, as you can see, but we want to try avoid doing that. We want to get on the rock over here. All right. Okay, I mean, that's definitely a pass. Tires that can do that without as much wheel speed, you know, that's better, but this is definitely a pass. And honestly, I'm surprised. I kind of thought that the Crux wouldn't stand a chance on that obstacle. But it turns out that anything that doesn't involve side hilling, maybe they're not that terrible at. And the challenge with this next obstacle is mostly about a tire's ability to position and hold its position, because it's pretty narrow here, and what we want to do is use the sidewall along that rock on the passenger side of the truck to help pull us up, because if the driver's side falls off, that gap is big enough to where it's probably not going to get back on without a class 3 size tire. And then this next rock that the front end is pulling up onto now has a good spot on it that usually hangs up the rear diff, and the Crux having enough clearance to get over that without much of a hang up at all. And of course our next obstacle here is typically my favorite one. Pretty steep incline. This obstacle is the main reason why I had put the shock bands on this truck, is because before I actually made a course out here, well, I say a course, it's not like I have gates, but before I started doing actual tire reviews and recording videos and everything, I had shock bands on this truck, and they made this obstacle a lot of fun, but I wasn't really doing the side hilling and trying to test all the different aspects of a tire. I was just having fun. But again, I don't think the shock bands were helping me in side hill performance. I think they're a pretty big hindrance. So what I'm seeing with the Crux is we got onto the obstacle okay, but I'm seeing with slow wheel speed, we are slipping back more than we're going forward. The lug is not able to get enough grip. This is reliant a lot, especially without shock bands, this is reliant a lot on the rear tire to be able to push the truck far enough up the rock to where the front can get a grip. Now, I do have the whole rock face to work with. I don't have to follow a specific line. So we're going to try to shuttle towards camera and see if we can't find traction. It's finding a little bit, but there's a major slip back there. Whoop. Okay. That's pretty on par from what I've seen from the Crux so far. But let's see. Okay, if we feed him a little wheel speed, there we go. All right, so Crux is definitely not a low speed tire, I don't think. It seemed to like that okay with wheel speed. Didn't really have any issues. Now we got to get off the obstacle with wheel speed. Probably shouldn't have stopped. Yeah, that's okay. And of course, now we come up to the trails. Now, this has always been my least favorite part because although I can drive one-handed, I don't love it. I'm not great at it. And now what I've learned since I put this 2300 kV motor in here, even though I dropped a lot on pinion, I was running a 24 tooth before, now I'm running an 18. I was running a 22 before actually. But there's a lot more wheel speed, so I've kind of adjusted the trigger on my transmitter a little bit. I might need to dial in a little bit more throttle delay because I've noticed when driving one-handed especially, I bump the throttle a lot and send it rocketing forward. So far on the trail, not a problem. This is where we start coming up to challenges, so there's going to be one. Now this right here, we're usually going to get hung on the front links, as we do. Take a little wheel speed, there we go. And then we want to be able to pull up here. Yeah, not really an issue there. Tires actually, some tires struggle with that pretty hard. The Crux did that pretty well. So forward drive is not a huge issue with the Crux. Straightforward drive. I think it definitely struggles when wet, and I think it definitely struggles in side hilling. So maybe it's not as bad as I originally thought. I think I've seen enough at the end of this course to where I am curious about side hilling enough. I will put a different insert in it. Now we see if we can get up here without having to go big throttle. We used to say 40% throttle on that 1200, which would be a little faster than what we're doing right now. Okay, I'm actually hung on something there. We're gonna back up because I like how it was slow crawling that. That was pretty good. Okay, able to slow crawl right up there really well. That was with a better tires. The Power Hobby Armor is the last one that did it that easily. So overall, I'm gonna say the Crux did okay. I definitely think, so when Reefs released these, they released the Crux and they released one called the Cheater. The Cheater's a pin tire. And the Crux is definitely more of a mud trail tire design. And in this compound, maybe that's really its intention. And so, I think I've seen enough good to want to retest a couple things with this tire. But I'm still going to say the Crux does not really hold up to the cost. These I do not believe to be worth $60 for a set. I'm going to have to order the pink because I'd definitely be interested to see if the pink are better and how much better they are. I assume they'll be better. I think they're probably just a different compound that's a lot better. From what I'm seeing, I mean, we drive on sandstone here, and that's the other thing. The reason why I don't usually buy the stickiest compound is because on sandstone you don't need it and it just tears up tires. But these, I mean, there's not even feathering on the lug. Now, granted, I haven't driven them in an extremely long time, but I think these would hold up a long time on trails, and I just don't think they make the best rock crawling tire. Depending on your area you're in, if you're crawling where you have mostly, inclines, I'm not even going to say they can't be steep, but fairly straight, fairly smooth inclines. Not dealing with being wet or not dealing with a lot of side hilling. Right now, I'm going to say side hilling and wet are the Achilles heel of the Crux in gray. I'm going to test the side hilling again with a different insert. I don't think it's going to make a massive difference, but I do think it'll make a difference. So if it significantly alters the way that these perform on the side hill, I'll record that and include it at the end of this video. The wet, you know, can't do anything about it. The tires did how they did when wet, and it wasn't great. So until next time, everybody, have a good day.